You did everything right. You showed up early. You solved the problem nobody else could solve. You stayed calm when the deadline collapsed. You made your boss look good in front of their boss. And somehow, that's the exact moment things got worse. The meetings you used to be invited to quietly stopped happening. The praise you used to get turned into vague feedback about your tone. The trust you used to have replaced with someone checking your work like you're new. If you've ever sat at your desk thinking, wait, did I get punished for doing a good job? You're not imagining it. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why it happened and why it was never actually about you. Let's see if any of this sounds familiar. You fix a problem that's been quietly breaking for months. You expect a thank you. Instead, you get silence, or worse, you get credit taken. You get promoted, and instead of more freedom, you suddenly get more supervision. Like the better you get, the less they trust you. You bring a great idea into a meeting. Your boss nods, says noted, writes nothing down, and the idea quietly disappears, only to resurface 3 weeks later as their idea. You start getting feedback that doesn't quite make sense. You're a bit much in meetings. People find you intense, maybe pull back a little, but nobody can ever point to what you actually did wrong. And the part that really messes with your head, you start wondering if you're the problem. You start shrinking yourself, talking less, trying less, just to make the discomfort stop. If any of that landed in your chest a little, keep watching, because what's happening to you has a name, and it's not about your performance. Here's the sentence that's going to reframe everything. A toxic boss isn't reacting to your weaknesses. They're reacting to your strengths, because your strengths are showing them their own. You think the issue is your personality, your communication style, your fit. That's the story they tell you, so you'll go fix yourself. The real issue is much simpler and much harder to say out loud. You made them feel replaceable. And a boss whose entire sense of safety is built on being needed cannot afford to feel replaceable. So instead of growing to meet you, they shrink the space around you. This isn't a flaw in you, it's a leak in them, and you just happen to be standing close enough to get wet. Maya worked at a mid-sized logistics company. For 2 years, a recurring billing error kept slipping through the cracks, costing the company money every single month. Her manager had looked into it multiple times and never solved it. Maya, 3 weeks into the role, found it, a misconfigured filter in the system that nobody had checked since before she was hired. She fixed it in an afternoon. She sent a clear, kind email explaining the fix, CCing her manager, expecting maybe a nice work. What she got instead was stranger than silence. Her manager started reviewing every email she sent before it went out. She got removed from the client call where the fix would have naturally come up. And 2 weeks later, in her one-on-one, she was told she needed to work on staying in her lane. Maya spent weeks thinking she'd overstepped. She hadn't. She just solved, in an afternoon, something her manager had failed to solve in 2 years, in front of the exact people her manager needed to look competent to. If you've ever fixed something quickly and then felt the room get colder instead of warmer, that's not your imagination. That's Maya's story. That might be your story. Psychology Reveal. Here's what was actually happening in Maya's manager's head, even if he never said it out loud, maybe even to himself. Competence to an insecure person isn't inspiring, it's evidence. Evidence that the gap they've been hiding, the thing they're not quite good enough at, is visible. Maya didn't accuse him of anything. She didn't even mention his past attempts. But her fix existed in the same world he existed in, and that was enough. Psychologists call this a threat to self-concept. Most people build a quiet internal story about who they are at work. I'm the reliable one. I'm the smart one. I'm the one who keeps this place running.
When someone else does the thing that story depends on and does it easily, the brain doesn't experience it as great, problem solved. It experiences it as, wait, who am I now? And when people feel that kind of identity threat, they don't usually attack the threat directly. They manage it indirectly, through distance, through control, through subtle exclusion. Not because they're plotting against you, because it's the only way they know how to protect a sense of self that suddenly feels shaky. You didn't make Maya's manager incompetent. He already was, quietly, in that one specific area. You just made it visible. And visibility is the one thing insecure competence can never survive.
Story 2. Daniel sold more than anyone on his team for 2 straight quarters. He expected recognition. He got something else entirely. His manager started checking in daily, not supportive check-ins, surveillance disguised as support. Every deal Daniel closed got a follow-up question, implying he might have cut a corner. Every win got a "let's make sure that's sustainable" instead of a "great job." Then came the team meeting, where his manager presented Daniel's numbers as a team win. No name attached, just "we." Daniel went home that night and told his partner, "I think I'm being punished for hitting my targets." His partner laughed, not because it was funny, but because it sounded so backwards it had to be true. It was true. Psychology revealed. This one runs even deeper than Maya's story, because it's not just about a skill gap, it's about something built into how humans are wired around status. Here's the part that's going to feel uncomfortable. Your brain and your boss's brain didn't evolve in office buildings. It evolved in small groups where your rank in the group affected whether you ate that week. Status threat to the nervous system doesn't feel like a minor inconvenience. It registers in the brain in some of the same regions as physical danger, not metaphorically, measurably. When someone close to you in a hierarchy starts rising fast, the brain of an insecure person doesn't calmly think, "good for them." It quietly screams, "I'm losing ground." And the closer you are to them, same team, same level, same manager watching you both, the louder that alarm gets. Daniel wasn't a threat because he was far away and unrelated. He was a threat because he was right next to his manager's own scoreboard. So his manager didn't praise him, he absorbed him, folded Daniel's win into the team, because crediting Daniel individually would have meant admitting, even silently, "he's pulling ahead of where I am, comfortable." You're not imagining the chill that comes right after a win. That chill is status threat, leaking out sideways because it can't be said out loud. Story 3. Priya had her best performance review in 3 years. Hard numbers, client praise, a clear list of wins. 2 weeks later, she got pulled off her highest visibility project and quietly moved to something smaller. When she asked why, her manager said gently, almost kindly, "I just think the team needs you to slow down a bit. Let others catch up." Let others catch up. Priya didn't get a performance problem. She got a pace problem, as if doing great work too consistently was itself the violation. She told a friend, "It's like I got demoted for being too good at my job." Her friend didn't laugh this time. Her friend just said, "Yeah, that happens more than people admit." Deep psychological layer. So far, you've seen 3 versions of the same wound, solving something they couldn't, rising faster than they're comfortable with, moving at a pace that exposes their own. But here's the layer underneath all of it, the part almost nobody says out loud. A toxic boss's behavior toward you usually has very little to do with you at all. It's their relationship with their own competence playing out, with you accidentally cast in the lead role. Somewhere, maybe years before you ever met them, that boss learned that being seen as enough was conditional. Maybe it was tied to being the smartest person in a room growing up. Maybe it was tied to a boss of their own who made them feel disposable the second someone better walked in. Maybe it's tied to a quiet, private fear that they only got this role through timing, not talent. And any day now, someone is going to notice. You didn't create that fear. You just happen to be standing in the spot where the fear gets triggered. This is why their behavior often feels so disproportionate to anything you actually did, because it's not a reaction to you. It's a reaction to them, wearing your name as a label. You are not being punished for who you are. You are being punished for reminding them of who they're afraid they are. That doesn't make it hurt less, but it does change what you're looking at. You're not looking at your flaw. You're looking at their wound reflected off your work. Reality reversal. And here's when everything flips. You've probably spent a lot of energy trying to figure out what's wrong with you. Are you too much, too direct, too fast, not political enough? You've been running an investigation into your own personality, looking for the defect that explains the cold shoulder. Here's the reversal. There is no defect to find, because the discomfort you're causing is not a symptom of something broken in you. It's proof of something working. Read that again because it rewires the whole story. The silence after your win isn't disapproval. It's a status alarm going off in someone who measures their worth against yours. The sudden oversight after years of trust isn't concern about your ability. It's discomfort with how little they're now needed to manage you. The vague feedback about your tone isn't really about your tone. It's about how loudly your competence is ringing in a room built around someone else's fragile sense of being essential. You've been treating their discomfort as evidence against you. It was actually evidence for you the entire time. A toxic boss doesn't usually go this much trouble managing, undermining, or quietly sidelining people who are mediocre. Mediocre is easy. Mediocre doesn't threaten anyone. The amount of energy someone spends trying to dim you is almost mathematically a measurement of how bright you actually are. You weren't too much. You were simply too visible for someone who needed to stay the brightest thing in the room. Contrarian perspective. Now, here's the part of this video that might be uncomfortable, but it matters, and it's the difference between insight and an excuse. Not every difficult boss is secretly threatened by your brilliance. Sometimes the story is messier than "I'm amazing and they can't handle it." Sometimes feedback that feels like sabotage is actually just feedback delivered badly by someone who's stressed, overloaded, and not thinking about you at all. Sometimes a manager pulling you off a project really is about timing, budget, or politics above their head, not your talent. And sometimes, if we're honest, competence in output can come paired with real friction in delivery, talking over people, dismissing slower colleagues, making others feel small in the process of being right. That's not toxicity from them. That's a blind spot in you, and it deserves its own honest look. The dangerous move isn't believing this video's explanation too little. It's believing it too easily, every single time, about every boss forever. Because then you never have to ask the harder question: is any part of this actually on me? The skill isn't every difficult boss is threatened by me. The skill is being honest enough to tell the difference between a boss who's threatened by your competence and a boss who's simply asking you to be competent and considerate at the same time. Practical framework.
So what do you actually do with this? Here's a simple framework you can use starting this week. Call it the mirror method, because what you're really managing is a reflection, not a referendum on you. M. Mute the self-blame loop. The moment you notice yourself spiraling into what's wrong with me, pause and ask, whose comfort is actually being protected here? Most of the time, it's not yours. I. Insulate your work. Keep your own record. Save the emails, the wins, the data. Not out of paranoia, out of self-respect. When someone else might reframe your story, you need your own version on paper. R. Redirect credit visibly, not just upward. Loop in allies, peers, and skip-level contacts on wins as they happen, not after the fact. Visibility shared in real time is much harder to quietly absorb later. R. Read the room for pattern, not incident. One weird interaction is a bad day. A pattern, credit disappearing, oversight increasing, vague feedback with no specifics, is a signal. Trust the pattern, not the single moment. O. Open a direct, calm conversation once. Not an accusation, a simple, observable statement. I've noticed X happening since Y. Can you help me understand what's going on? This does two things: gives a healthy manager a chance to course correct, and gives an insecure one nowhere to hide behind vagueness. R. Run your own timeline. If the pattern continues after you've named it, that's your answer. You don't need permission to start quietly building your next move. A transfer, a new team, a new company. Staying isn't loyalty if staying means shrinking. This framework won't fix a threatened boss. You can't fix someone else's relationship with their own competence, but it will stop you from absorbing their fear as if it were your fault.
Identity-based conclusion. Here's what I want you to leave with. You are not too much. You are not difficult. You are not the problem employee everyone keeps quietly hinting you might be. You are a mirror, and some people simply cannot stand what they see when they look at you, because what they see is everything they're afraid they're not. That's not your failure to manage. That's their fear to outgrow. So the next time the room goes a little colder right after your best work, don't shrink. Don't go looking for the flaw that isn't there. Just remember they're not dimming you because you're dim. They're dimming you because next to you, they are. And the moment you stop mistaking their discomfort for your deficiency is the moment you stop asking for permission to be exactly as good as you already are.